Hello, in this video I'm going to show you around this Aferiy P010 800 watt power station. Now, I'd like to point out before we start the video that although it says paid promotion above me, I haven't been paid for this, but Aferiy did kindly send me this for free to review and I get to keep it afterwards, which classes as the payment, so I just want to make that perfectly clear. I've got no script from them to say, it's all my own views and I'm allowed to say whatever I like. So let's show you around it. Right, so before we start, I'd just like to say this video is going to have been filmed over multiple days. I've had this unit for about a month now. I've been using it in the camper van. I am filming parts of this in the garage. There's going to be parts of it filmed on certain trips in the van, parts in the other trips in the van. You'll get the idea. It just shows that I've actually used it. I didn't want to do a review where I just point you through the whole thing and you don't get to see it in use. So first things first, it comes in a well-packed box. Can't fault that. You get the instructions with it and you get a little bag with all the cables in. I'll show you that now. Right, so in the bag you get a charging lead for your DC input from solar, your standard solar MC4s to, are they called XT60s I think? I'll put it on the screen if I'm wrong, but I think they're called XT60s. You get, in my case, a UK charging lead, your normal kettle type as they call it. This is a good thing from the start, means there isn't a power block and it's just a normal standard lead. This is a dust jacket. It's not waterproof, but it's basically a cover that goes over that. I will show you that later. And then the bag to keep them in. So just to show you the bag in situ, you can see it is just a dust cover. Don't attempt to use the unit with this on because you'll block the fans and that would be bad. Okay, so we've dispensed with the box and all the accessories. Just going to run you through a quick part of the instruction book. Obviously you get your power station, your charging lead, your manual and your solar MC4 to XT60 plug. Basically explains to you that it's a 512 watt hour 800 watt unit. Now 512 watt hours in layman's terms means it would run something that's 512 watts for an hour. However, there is going to be a slight bit of power loss in that because it is got to run its own inverter. So if we be kind and say you could run something for 500 watts for an hour, you can see that this unit is great for small appliances, but if you wanted to run something in your house like a fridge or something, it's either not going to run it or it's only going to run it for a very short time. So as I say, with all these power banks, you really need to look at what you want to use the application for and make sure that it will run it. This is fine for in weekend use in a van, charging all your USB items, 12 volt DC items. It will run things on the AC and I'll run that test for you later so you can see in the video what I've been using this for. Right, so if I talk you through the unit on the front, it is very, very simple. We power it on with the big silver button and it comes on. You can see it tells you the percentage of the battery left, how long it would run on standby. It always says 99 hours if you're not running anything. And you've got every different section to use. So if we run through this one, this is the DC section. You're basically the same with everything. To turn the DC section on, you press the button. That then activates the cigarette lighter, as we'll call it, and this bullet connector. And you can see there's a picture of a cigarette lighter there and a bullet connector there. That shows you that they're active. Turn that off. This center button shows you the USBs. You've got 3 USB-Cs and 2 USB-As. 2 of the Cs are 20 watts. One is a high output 100 watt. That's nice to have. And again, you activate them by pressing the button and you see a little light come on there. Pretty simple. The smaller units tend to have a light on them, and again this is no different. Put the light on. You can have it on constant or you can have it on flash, and I believe that's doing SOS. And we'll turn that off. Side view of the unit, you can see first of all one of the cooling fans there. Underneath this flap you've got your DC input. This is DC for charging in a car through a cigarette lighter socket. Unfortunately, they don't supply that lead. They are easy enough to buy, but I do think they've missed a trick there. I'd rather have the DC input for the cigarette lighter than a solar. But again, It's not that negative, it's just it would have been nicer to have. And this is your AC input, as I've said. Great that this doesn't have an external brick. It's much better to just be able to charge as a unit. Worth pointing out that this does charge quite quickly, an hour and a half from empty to full through the AC at 400 watts, but it will do dual charge through solar and AC, and that'll bring that down to an hour if you've got enough solar input to do that. But quite frankly, an hour and a half, I don't know why you'd want to charge it any quicker than that anyway. So that is a good thing. On this side, you can see another fan, and this is your AC socket. Now, if I was picking flies with this, I don't like a cover on the AC socket, and I'll tell you for why. There are certain plug sockets in the UK that come up that way, usually with computers or monitors and stuff. And if I just, this is quite fiddly, if I just open that, you can't plug some things in. The cable comes up from the top and it won't let you. So I really don't see the need for this flap. And also there is only one outlet on this. Again, you're not going to run that massive amount of things that you need to, but I think it would have been nicer without the flap, and maybe two of them if they could have fitted them on the front. But, you know, if you look for what you're buying and it suits you, it's fine for what we've been doing because we've only been running one thing at a time off it. And again, with this one, power the AC on, and then it comes on there and shows you the little sine wave. The thing with the AC, you can see as soon as you put the AC on, it drops down. That is because although it's not using any power, the inverter is running. So always remember, if you're going to run these and then you're finished with the AC, turn it off, because you are actually using power right now, even though you're not doing anything with it. A good thing about this that I do like, the back has got no vents or anything on, so you can leave this close up to a wall or a unit or something and it's not going to impede on it. You can see there all the data. If you want to pause your screen and read that, but it does say here, as you can see, rated to 800 watts, peak at 16. That is basically a surge. It won't run anything at 16. You'll see later in the video how we go on with running something over 800 watts. UPS mode. This is a good feature. So basically UPS stands for uninterrupted power supply. If you run this through the AC, plugged in and charging, but also outputting on the AC side to a computer or something, and you have a power cut, the computer won't notice and it will continue to run. You won't lose your screens and stuff, and it's really quick on this. I'll put on the screen the exact milliseconds. I think it's 7, but I'm not sure. I will put that correction on the screen. Okay, so that was a quick overview of it. You can see it's got a carry handle on the top. It's less than 7 kilos, this one, I think. It's really portable, ever so easy to pick up, and it's got a lovely set of rubber feet on the bottom. Doesn't move about when we've had it in the van. Quite like it. It doesn't have phone charging on the top, but not an issue for me. But something to bear in mind if you're after a small unit. Some of them do have that. But yeah, a lovely portable unit. So what we're going to do now, we'll cut away to me using this over the last few weeks in various scenarios on AC, on DC, charging, and then we'll come back for a final wrap up at the end. Okay, so first bit of insert video. What we find really useful with these power banks is on departure day, if you don't want to put your hob on because you don't want to wait for it to then cool down before you can leave, but you want a cup of tea, I find it's a lot easier to use one of these to boil your kettle. So let's see how it copes. Okay, so we're at 100% because we've already charged this prior to doing the tests. Power is on, as you can see. You turn the power on for the AC sockets there, which is that one, and the flap there. Hopefully you can see in this light. It's not a very bright day. The one thing I'm not keen on is this flap. I don't mind that it's only got one socket, but I think the flap is a daft idea, if I'm honest. But here we go, we're on. It says that that kettle is 643 watts, which is about right. think it was a 600 and I think it was marketed as a 600 and something, so it's about right. You can see, as with anything with these, it says it will only run that kettle if you run it constantly for 39 minutes. These are definitely a convenience thing. You need to get that in your head whenever you're buying any power bank, not just the Aferiy, anyone at all. But it's going to do it, and we'll come back to it in a bit to see how much battery it uses to boil a full kettle of water. So we're coming to the end of the kettle. Tone has changed on the kettle itself, so it's getting close. The fan has just come on the Aferiy, but it's no louder than the kettle really, to be honest. See the little display there telling you the fan's running. Let's just see what we get to. Starting to see the steam now, and we're off. So we used 17% to boil a kettle of water. Test number 2. We are going to do some toast. So let's see what this toaster uses, and indeed if it'll run. Now that, to me, is probably on the limit of what this will work. It's saying it's 820 watts, 822. This is actually only 800 watt unit, so it's either running at restricted power and it just ramps itself down and lets it work, or that's a good coincidence. And we'll soon find out. It may even trip it out. It's dropped down to 819 watts now. I should have a look after. I'll put on the screen now what watts this toaster is. Right, so after the initial kick in, it's pretty much leveled out at 817 watts. Although you can see, should you want to toast for a long time, it's only going to last 21 minutes. And the fan has just kicked in on the Aferiy. You can perhaps hear it a lot better now that the kettle isn't boiling. You can hear that the fan is quite noisy, but obviously that is running at capacity now. And my toast is done. Look at that. Perfect. So we're down to 73%. Okay, so one of the other items that you're going to really use in a camper van is probably a hairdryer or some hair straighteners. Now obviously I don't need either of those things, but my glamorous assistant on the channel sometimes uses the hairdryer. This is obviously plugged into the 230 AC socket. It's a 1400 watt travel hairdryer, so in theory this unit is not going to power that on full. It's an 800 watt unit, although it will clip out to about 1600 watts, but it probably won't run at that. So let's see what happens when we fire it up. At the minute you can see we're on 95% with 31 hours at standby. You'll have to excuse the noise on this one. So you can see on position 1 it runs it okay. It's pulling about 606 watts and it says it'll run that for 34 minutes. I'm going to throw it up to position 2 now and we're going to see what happens. Right, as you can see, it's topped out at 850 watts and obviously it'd only run for 24 minutes. Obviously it's either clipped it down and that's all it's going to give it, or it's going to trip out, but I don't want to make it trip out. We can basically see that that's running at its limit at the minute. So there you go, it will run it, but for how long we're unsure. Okay, so we're on the DC socket at the minute, cigarette lighter, whatever you want to call it, and we're running a TV in the van. You can see it's pulling about 16-17 watts. That's running a Fire Stick and the TV. and at 98% we're flickering between 22 and 21 hours that it will run that. So yeah, let's see what's on the telly. Turn them off, they're rubbish. Okay, so loaded up with USBs. We've got a mobile phone charging there, a power block, a action camera and an iPad. And you can see they're just pulling 24 watts and they'd last for 15 hours charging that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the solar input on this one, which is there. Now bear in mind we're just approaching winter at the moment. I have got some solar on the side of my garage, but the angle is actually set more for the summer, so I'm not really hopeful it'll do anything. Just plug that in. Right, if there's any solar it'll boot itself up because it automatically turns on if it registers a voltage. So there we go. Oh well, there you go. It's not a lot, but there is 5 watts of solar coming in there. I'll quickly show you the panel outside and you'll see why we're not getting anything really. Right, there is my solar panel. Normally where I live, that's east and then south is up there, but obviously this time of year you can see there's no sun at all. We are overcast, but it just shows you that this solar input does work. Okay, so after using it this morning and getting it down to 73%, we have fitted the DC charger. You don't get one supplied with the Aferiy, but there is enough to buy. It just plugs in the side, as I've showed you when I've done through the run through. We're getting about 97 to 100 watts going in, and we'll see what that puts in by the time we get home. Right, I don't know if you can see that. We've just got home and we're on 99%, be just over an hour, and it's still just about putting in 100 watts. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the AC charging now. I have already charged this from 0 to 100 earlier off camera, so I know that it does take an hour and a half. I just want to show you that it puts in 400 watts of power. So the AC kicks in. And there we go. So we're at 400 watts, and that's telling me it'll take 29 minutes to fully charge. And as I say, I've done this before. It does take exactly an hour and a half from empty to full. And as I've said earlier in the video, if you wanted to charge tandem solar and AC, you can get that down to an hour by throwing 600 watts in, but there's really no need. Okay, so that was the Aferiy P010. It's an 800 watt power station. Lovely, nice, compact design. Does exactly what you need for a short weekend away. And as long as you know, as I've said, what you want to run off it, I think it's a good buy. There's a link on the screen now for a great reduction in price if you want it, and also all the details below in the description. Let me know what you thought of the video, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.